let's go. Welcome to the Allcast Podcast, the spot we dive into the journeys of young entrepreneurs and shake up the game.
And today we've got Jake Harper with us, a true hustler from the University of Washington. He's not just acing his studies, he's also carving his own path in the startup world. Super great to have you here, Jake.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Bro, I want to say before we dive into the questions and we start playing the 21 question game, I want to say you're the best person out there, most obsessed person that I know, like the embodiment of the word obsession. And I know you can create beautiful design products in days, so we had to have you on. So again, appreciate you for having it on.
Thank you for all the kind words, guys. I really appreciate it.
Hell yeah.
So first question that we got for you, man. Jake, everyone's got a story. So what is yours? How did you step into the entrepreneurial journey, and what's the fire that keeps you going today?
That's a great place to start off. I think, my whole journey started, I would say, a little bit ago in high school. And one of my close friends, he always had so much drip walking through the halls. And he kept on telling me this thing about reselling, like, bro, Supreme, bro, Jordans, everything in between. And I just remember, like, there was this side of me that was like, that's so cool. I want to be a part of this. But also, like, how are you making money if you're not 16 yet? Like, we have to be 16 to get a job. And I was like so anxious to start making money. Like, I was ready to figure it out at any means possible. And luckily he put me on to selling these shoes. And honestly, I had zero luck. Like, I was really bad. And we started with Supreme, and every now and then I would get lucky, maybe get like a hat off the drop. But I think luckily this all exposed me to just like this community of other young people who are doing the same thing. Like, it's crazy that during our high school years, there's so many people that were just reselling, and then it got even deeper because there are Discord groups to help other people resell. There were sneaker bots, there were Supreme bots, and all of this had like a secondary market. And it turned into not even me trying to resell sneakers, but me trying to sell things to the other people who are reselling. And I was like, all right, I need to go ahead and make a sneaker bot, and I'm going to learn Python, and it's going to be easy. Just going to watch some YouTube videos. And after I started learning Python, I was like, okay, this shit's fucking hard. I have no idea how to make a bot. And like, I was incredibly naive. I was like, yeah, I can do it. But looking back, I never did make that sneaker bot that would buy things off the release. But while I was learning, one of the projects that I sort of gave myself was, I'm going to make a Discord bot that one of these sneaker related groups can use. And I ended up making it would like spam someone's eBay product listing with 100 views at once, so it could improve their SEO when they're trying to sell stuff. And found a buyer for it, and then I was making like $15 a month. And it was like an insane feel of like, I built something, I learned how to make it, and now there's someone who actually wants it on the other side that's paying me for it. That was the most insane introduction, and I feel like that like little spark has been keeping me going since in all different kinds of ways.
Just living off the first customer high.
Exactly. It really feels different.
I feel you. That's the same way how I got into the game, is just honestly the sneaker community, which is crazy to think about, is that this like sneaker bot community really got it. Because I created my own sneaker bot. I was like a little bit successful, but like not super successful, but I pretty much just sold the hopes of, it was bad, bro. In high school, I was just selling the hopes that you can cop it and let's like slots and stuff like that. And some of my friends were successful and some people were not. So I was low key hustling people, but I was like, don't do what I did. But it was the first introduction and like of seeing like, creating something of value. So, dude, that's crazy. Like one question that I had is, from this experience, how did this expose you to, the technologies that you're using today? Like where did you start your exploration as soon as you had this experience?
Yeah, so honestly, for the longest time, I was like, I'm gonna stick to Python. I think Python's so easy. I'm just gonna keep building stuff with it. And like, it was as continued selling these Discord bots that I met other developers for this community just like online. And we started talking, and there was this one guy, his name is Sam. And Sam was like, bro, you gotta learn JavaScript because with JavaScript, you can build a user interface. And I was actually so against it because I Googled some stuff with Python. I'm like, yo, check this out right here. You can do it on Python. But in reality, it's like the most shitty user interface possible. And this guy, Sam, him and I eventually started making something together. But I think as Discord friends go, I think one day he literally just like removed himself from GitHub and blocked me on Discord, and that was it. But like, I have no idea why to this day. But shout out him, Sam, if you're listening to this. Thank you for putting me on JavaScript.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Yeah.
Shout out Sam. Shout out Sam.
For real.
I love how that story that you just told, Jake, is like you had your heart set on one thing and then you had to pivot really quickly. And I think that's something when you start out creating at first that is really hard to do because it's kind of like your baby, and it's hard for you to give that up. But is there any other like rough patches that you can think of that you've hit in the past? And like, how do you, I don't know, personally for me, even like when trying to build this podcast with Auk, like obviously you're going to hit some rough patches. So like, what's your motivation? Is it like just pursuing the first customer and learning from that and keeping going? What's kind of keeping you going, and from not burning out?
Yeah. After like I feel like I'm still so early in my like startup or entrepreneurial journey, but I think my belief so far at least is the rough patches really never go away. Like in a lot of ways it's kind of necessary to be in the trenches while building to be able to have like that amazing euphoric feeling when you finally finish it, when you finally ship it, when you finally get that first customer. Um, I would say one of the biggest times that I felt burnout or like in those trenches was also correlated with when I was learning the most. And I would say about a year ago in my sophomore year into the start of my junior year of college, I was working on a fitness app. And this is the first time I spent like a really long time. I committed 11 months to working on this project. And 6 of those months were in the lab. Like we built this product out and we didn't show anybody. We were like secretive about it. And we just kept on doing it until we thought it was ready. But when we finally launched, it was also just so hard because we didn't do that early testing that just nobody was using it. Like it was a convincing enough idea for someone to download it, but we didn't do that user testing that all of this work we put in, we kind of like just built out the wrong user experience. And who knows now, maybe if we did things differently, it could have been better. But I think like these are all like first time founder mistakes that like really I'm really happy that I made it. And I was talking to the co-founders I made with it just the other day. And like those mistakes have taught me so well for the things that I built afterwards. And like I actually think we made every single mistake in the book. And like
Get it all out of the way first. Get it all out of the way first. That's good.
Exactly. And honestly, that's probably naive of me to say too, because there's so many more mistakes and failures I will make going forward that I'll learn from as well. And like Yeah, I think startups are one of those things where people say you learn the most from your failures, and it's so true. And like once you come out on the other side, it's genuinely like you see the world differently, and it keeps on happening.
I love that perspective.
Yeah, I wanted to build on top of that, like kind of like diving deeper, because we, the big thing around startups is like everyone's saying like, oh, you got to be obsessed, you got to be eating top ramen, all the hustle culture stuff. But like, how do you think about obsession, and how do you think about kind of like those grind moments, and like, and what lens does it, like, from your experience, like, how did that change, and how did that start to develop your idea of obsession?
I think over time my idea of that has been changing a lot. Like I think as an outsider you see like the people on Snap who post like the 4 a.m. their IDE and like that. I feel like it's easy to think that that is the grind, that's how things are done, that's like mandatory for being successful. And I have recently had a paradigm shift in my head where I almost want to prove that you can be successful without needing the 4 a.m. nights. And now my new belief is like, and as someone who has done the 4 a.m. nights in the past, like I think that can only lead to burnout. And you only have so many 4 a.m. nights in the tank that once you use them, you just start like running out of gas, and it it doesn't go it goes from obsession to honestly like hatred. And it's such a fine line that since then I've tried to really prioritize just finding balance so I can like get that recovery so I can keep on cooking for like a long period of time. And now my belief has changed so much. I genuinely think like if you work an hour a day, but do you do that consistently, you're gonna beat out that person who does 8 hours in one night and then takes the next few days off and sleeps until 4. It's just the healthy lifestyle really does contribute towards like more obsession and more creativity. What do you guys think about that?
I'm actually glad you asked me because I was just gonna like hop in and say my 2 cents. But
Mm,
I totally agree with what you're saying. I think if you're doing those 4 a.m. nights like consistently, like I feel like you're literally killing your brain. Like you're losing productivity and wasting your time, honestly. Um, and it is really hard to find that balance. I think it's critical for you being productive in whatever you're trying to pursue. Um, and I could say more about Aqua. What do you think? What do you think about it?
Yeah, okay, so this is something that I've actually been thinking about a while, and this is from like just the people that I've seen in the startup world, and I think health is not taken serious in the startup world. Like, I think like, when people are like, oh, like you need to just eat the ramen, you need to do, you need to just eat pizza all day, do whatever you can to just like build, 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 build. But I feel like in the long term, that's gonna mess you up. Like if you think about it in that sense, like the lack of sleep, you're off of your sleep cycle, you're doing all things. I believe obsession is key. You know what I'm saying? Like I think being mentally obsessed with something and being like, oh, like I love this, like I love getting in here. I love like when you're in that flow state and all, saying like the you look up and you realize like 3 hours have passed. Like that's the best
yeah,
feeling ever. That
yeah.
feeling of obsession. But at the same time, if you like try to, do those 4 a.m. nights and all that, like you are going to start hurting your body, and in the long term, like you said, you're just gonna end up being burnt out. And I just feel like the startup world needs to start looking at health as a more serious thing. You know what I'm saying? Like making sure that you're getting your sleep, making sure that I feel like if you really do deep work and like obsess, then you're not looking at your phone in between, during your session, you're not doing all that. You can get a lot more done than you actually believe that you can,
Hmm.
so that you can fit in time for your health, to go to the gym, go on a walk, go do these kind of things. Because I feel like when you move your body, your creativity is on another level. And like you allow your mind to just kind of like take a mental rest and kind of reset. And like I feel like humans, we got to be moving around and doing things. So that's kind of like, I just feel like health is like a slept on thing in this
Hmm.
industry. And I don't know. I don't know how like I don't know how else to explain it. Like and sound sexy at the same time, but uh, I just think like people just sleeping on their health when they're grinding. Like it's just
Hmm.
it's not sustainable.
Not at all. Yeah. I think one metaphor I was thinking of while you guys were talking is like doing a bunch of 4 a.m. nights in a row, or like or working without first having these health values is like if you went to the gym without eating first. Like you just like you're on an empty stomach. Like yeah, you can lift, but like you're really not doing your best work, and it just doesn't feel that great at the end of the day. Like it really
Yeah.
just makes such a difference.
I mean, it's like I mean, sleep is like fuel for the mind, like you know what I'm saying? And like
Hmm.
I feel like, if we're conscious of how we're treating our bodies, like this is the essence of like our energy. You don't need to be consuming all these energy drinks and all that. Like if you just take care of your body, you could skip all that like all the like, caffeine and all that. Like it's not needed. You could just treat your body right, and now you got the energy of just like an athlete where you can just run consistently, but metaphorically, you won't be just typing away, but like so just keeping it like that. I wanted to kind of like segment to another thing, and ask you, like with, schools, startups, social life, there's a lot that you have to juggle. How do you keep all the balls in the air without dropping any?
I think earlier in my college career, I definitely had to do some limit testing to figure out what does and doesn't work for me. And I've been through like some super, super busy eras of my life. Like I remember at one time, my freshman year spring, I was like rushing my business frat. I was taking 17 credits, and I did another 2 credit class, so like 19 credits total, and a business startup competition. And like I remember for a minute, I really loved being so busy. And when you're so busy, like you honestly don't have time to think about it. Like maybe how you want things to change. And it's like instead it's kind of this like slow feeling that creeps up on you. And reflecting on it now, I remember so vividly like luckily I made it through the whole quarter and finished pretty successfully, but I remember those last 3 weeks of just being like, I need this quarter to be done. Like
Hmm.
being so ready for summer break. And honestly, it was just like, I don't think I could have lasted much longer within that. And I'm glad summer came when it did, because when it did, I just crashed so hard, like didn't do any work for so long. And I think this kind of lines up with what we're saying about balance and health. And for me, my personal issue is, and it's something I'm trying to work on, like when life gets busy, I am so bad at making the time to like work out, get 3 meals in a day, and like eat good food. So since then, I've gone through like stints of, okay, I'm not gonna make any plans for a really long time, just gonna do spontaneous shit and see how that goes. And I've fallen back into the busy areas too, but I think now I'm like really, really like, I think my perfect day is I have one planned event, I have time to work, I have time to work out, and I also have time to be spontaneous. And I've had to make some sacrifices to do that, like finishing my degree a bit slower, I think has been like the cost that I'm willing to take. Luckily, I did running start, but like the benefit of having only 10 credits has let me kind of do basically everything that I want, and still have the free time to just the necessary free time to like that's when I'm creative, that's when I'm recovering. And it's so hard to protect that at times, but you just got to do it anyways, because it's like in those moments where you realize, holy shit, I need to do this more.
No, I feel you, bro. I feel you. I was literally talking to Ryan about this not too long ago, or like literally right before we started filming this, how I was having problems of just saying yes to every
Mm,
meeting or every meetup, and I was like, I literally feel like I have no time to work on what I'm truly passionate about, like, this podcast, being able to build on the side. Like I just keep myself, what I'm saying, just keep myself throwing so many things where it disrupts my workflow and it allows me to not get in that flow state, you know what I'm saying? Uh,
100%.
so I'm working on that, bro. I feel you 100%.
Yeah, I feel like we've all been there, and kind of what I took away from your perspective, Jake, is like you had to make a sacrifice, and like one of those sacrifices is like taking longer to finish your education, which is totally chill. Obviously, like not many people finish on time, so it's like it's totally all right. But finding something that you're okay with sacrificing, I think, is like one of those ways that you can only manage your time well and still do stuff that you like, because doing spontaneous stuff is like, I feel like that's healthy, making like memories like that, doing spontaneous stuff with your friends, I feel like that's healthy, to be able to do that. All right, to kind of segment away from this, we want to get a little more technical, and we want to highlight some of the cool shit
Okay.
that you've made. Yeah. But
Oh, thank you.
Aqua's telling me a funny story, and maybe you'll touch on it, but for us to brag about you a little bit, you were in the Seattle Times. You made a really cool platform for UW students to use called getuwmajor.com. So kind of tell us, like, how did you get the word moving with this? How did you get it out to students? And I'm also curious, like, how did I don't know, schools and the community like react to you making this? Because I've always wondered why the hell this isn't out there. It's so lame that you can't see it. I don't understand why they don't want you to see it.
Well, yeah,
Why
and
it's like a little
explain
hidden.
it for everyone.
Yeah,
Explain it for everyone
explain
too,
it.
because we feel like you can explain it best. So explain it for everyone, and then dive into those questions if you don't mind.
Yeah, yeah, I'd love to. I love talking about this. So, Get UW Major is a website that is meant for helping the student who, well, actually, I'll go back a few more steps. So, University of Washington is a public school. It is a school where there's more students who want to study business, CS, and these other really like popular majors than the amount of students that they can take. So because of that, twice a year, typically there's an application season where current accepted UW students have to apply again to actually study what they want to study, which is ridiculous. But that's how it works at UW, and it's a more competitive process for some majors than others, but there's a pretty much top 4 to 5, arguably, that are the most competitive to getting into. And I was actually serving on the admissions committee for one of these majors, informatics. I served on it for 2 quarters, and basically, you just read a whole lot of essays. And I think during the time I just read like 100 essays, and I learned kind of the ins and outs of how this admissions process works. I saw like maybe some of the issues with it, which I'll dive into later. But most importantly, I got to read so many student stories, and my role was to read through an essay and use this rubric almost as a checklist to make sure that students were hitting what the prompt was describing them to talk about. And while I was reading through these essays, I noticed that for some of these student stories, like they could have been so good, they could have been so captivating, heart wrenching. I could have read it and think that this person deserves to get informatics, but maybe they just missed one thing that the rubric really asked for. And by the way, it's a very specific rubric. Like it basically wants you to write 4 essays in one and somehow combine it together. And there were so many essays that were so good, but missing one thing. And I couldn't help but think, did this student have a friend in the major who could have read through it for them? Or did they have any resources available to them that could have been a safety check to just say, like, hey, look, this is a really great story, but you're missing this one thing. And that isn't even a subjective thing, like, hey, your essay needs some work. It's literally like, the essay is asking for you to do this thing, and so many students were still not even hitting that. And I started thinking that this is an information access issue. To get back into like what is Get You to Major, I found out about this thing called the Freedom of Information Act. Actually, while being on the admissions committee, and I made a bunch of requests just like to see what it can do. And to take a few more steps back, the Freedom of Information Act, it's for all public entities, and it lets you basically request anything from anywhere. And typically, schools, government bodies are super mysterious of what you can and can't request. And I only found out about it because on the admissions committee, they told us that students can actually request our conversations about them. And I was like, wait, that's so weird. These are like, it's a Microsoft Teams group chat, but if we mention a student's name, they are obliged to being able to request that information.
No
And
way. What?
yeah, and I just thought it's so crazy that I don't know about this. Like, I didn't know that we could do that. Like, and for this marketing thing that I ended up not doing, I went on the street and like asked people if they knew about this, and 100% of people didn't. And I think that just like fueled this curiosity in me, and I just started making a lot of requests. I think I made like 15 different requests just asking different things because it's literally just a form, and you have to like really just limit test it and see what you can and can't do. So I requested like, let me see all the teachers who are talking shit about me. Let me see like uh, the average GPAs of every single class, every single course and professor. Let me see. I'm still waiting on this, but they should be sending it back to me in like 2 months, which takes forever. um, I'm waiting for them to send me back every single course evaluation from every single professor of like the last 5 years.
Wow.
Oh, oh.
Okay. I
Yeah,
can
so
see
I
what you're
just,
cooking. I can
yeah,
see what
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
you.
cooking.
That's crazy. Oh my gosh.
So I just shot a lot of shots, and one of those shots ended up being I have the informatics admissions rubric, but I kind of am like sworn to secrecy with this thing. But what if I tried to request it through the Freedom of Information Act? If they gave it to me through that means, I can do whatever I want with it. And I think it was really helpful knowing that it existed, and knowing what I'm looking for. So long story, they eventually got back to me, and like they sent it to me. And I think I waited like 2 months to get this data back, and I was like, that day I was just so happy. I'm like, this is gonna change everything. And after that, I made the request for the rest of the closed capacity majors at UW. It was later on in the summer that I started building.
How did the schools react to that? Like, how did they? Were they a little? Like, 'cause I could imagine they could be a little salty about this. If they're keeping these kind of things under not so public, which makes sense. Um, how did they feel about it when you started kind of it started picking up a lot of traction? Because I remember at least when I was helping people get into the informatics, a lot of people were using it. I was like telling people like, yo, go to that website, it's actually really fire, and it
Oh
helps a
yeah.
lot. But everyone already knew about it. How were you able to get the word spread around, and
Mm.
how did schools react to this once like it started spreading like wildfire?
Yeah. Yeah. So first, I'll start off with answering this question about how did schools react, and it actually the reaction began before I even officially launched Get UW Major. And one thing about all of this is I was actually really close to not even like publishing the website. Like it was
Really?
fully done for like a week. I remember this is like the first project where I had fully finished it like a week before I was planning to launch it. Usually it's like day of, it's done, push it. But this time I wanted to like time it right with when the informatics application and Foster application opened. Foster is a business school, and um, so I really wanted to time it right. And I like wrote out the caption. I had a promo video, and then it started hitting like, wait, I'm actually dropping this. This could actually change things. This could maybe fuck things up with admissions. Like, and then I started getting scared. Like, what if all I'm doing is actually just going to negatively impact it? And I'm the guy who just made things worse. I was kind of like struggling with that for a bit, and it's easy to think doing this thing that other people haven't done yet, like what if UW gets mad? What if like I lose out on future opportunities? To be honest, like I was spiraling a bit. And as like a little bit of icing on the cake, I sent this out, like a demo of it, to the chair of the informatics program and the head of admissions or the head of the admissions committee of informatics. And I think that their feedback, like they didn't really tell me what I wanted to hear in a nutshell. That honestly really had me second guessing myself more. It wasn't, and I remember like the decision to finally release it was like I was telling my friend about it. I was really fixated on how I lose out on future opportunity. And I think like we were on a hike and bro just like we stopped walking for a sec and he's like, Jake, listen, you're being scared about like something that hasn't happened yet. Like I was worried that I was thinking like a little bit too many steps ahead, that once you're thinking that many steps ahead, there's always like this catastrophe situation. And he was like, yo, actually, when you release this, you have no idea what will happen. And the best likelihood or the chances of the UW hiring you or like they not letting me get my degree are very low because everything that I'm doing is like fully legal, fully allowed. I wasn't breaking any rules. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So that got me ahead and I launched it. And I would say that I started hearing a little bit more and more about the school's reaction, but it was all you only hear like what people tell you, I guess. And when it's like the internal conversations, I think I only got a small taste of it. One funny aspect of this is like I actually could FOIA request what the professors were saying about it if I really wanted. Like, but in a way that felt like an abuse of power.
Yeah. If you're feeling like a demon, you could do that. If you're feeling like a demon,
Yeah,
you could do
bro.
that.
Like
Like
I'm
you
not
got
playing
your
God,
your
but
hand your hands rubbing. You're like, yeah, all those conversations y'all thought you could have privately. It's like, nah, I'm putting that out there.
but I did hear some whispers of what people were saying, and I think in a lot of ways it was a very positive reaction from the university. Very thankfully, I think there's probably a few feathers that were ruffled, but overall, it got a lot of the administration, from what I heard, it got a lot of the administration thinking like finally we just probably have to accept like people are going to use AI. And what I'm hoping and something I'm still working for and talking to administration about is like the cat is out of the bag. Like now, as much as you can do to keep on changing the rubric or like staying one step ahead, they like there's always gonna, if it's not me now, somebody else knows about it and is gonna keep on requesting. And I think something interesting is apparently after building this and like making the Freedom of Information Act a little bit more well known, apparently after one of the last submission cycles for one of these majors, the amount of requests for students asking about their own information, like what did the reviewers say about them, has like gone up exponentially. And like it's really cool to see now as like one of the other impacts of this, like there's a lot more students like advocating for themselves now, like trying to get this information themselves. And there's been people who've reached out to me like asking for the direct request that I sent when I made it, or all these things. And that's been just really awesome.
Yeah, power to the people, man. That's awesome. Good for
For
you.
real,
That's
for
really
real.
cool.
Thank you.
I'm glad you got over that fear too. That little like you just had a reality check, which is totally valid. And going back to like the mental health thing, like you had somebody there with you, you know, you had like a support group that like just gave you a reality check. So I think that was critical, definitely. Just from you talking, like that sounded like a critical changing factor for you. So
Yeah, for
Shout out to your
sure.
boy that gave you that reality check on that height.
Shout out Justin.
Sometimes,
Shout out Justin.
sometimes you need that. Sometimes you need that little moment in nature.
Oh, definitely.
I wanted to touch upon this kind of thing because I know that you use kind of like you leverage GPT, you leverage GPT to create this, and like it in essence was if I don't no disrespect at all, and no, and this is like I'm just like in essence is you leveraged your brilliant design thinking with an ability to wrap it around AI to help people. And like I feel like it's become more common now than like stirring up in the tech world. Um, and honestly, like I wanted to ask you, like, have you ever, do you like how do you feel about the GPT wrapper? I remember we were talking about this a while back in class, and I was low key dissing it, but you kind of put it into perspective for me and what your thoughts of and how you think it's still beneficial and it's still good. And you kind of like allowed me to really change my thinking in the sense of like as a builder, like it's just it allows you to just go ship something that has immense value. So like, what's your raw take on them, and how do you dance around the stigma that I mean, you saw me, I like literally just like talked to you. I remember I was like dissing about it, and you're like, bro, you have to look at it in another lens. And, like I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
remember
all
that.
right, yeah, yeah. So yeah, how what's your take on them, and how do you dance around the stigma?
To start off, I would say when you're thinking about using GPT in a tool, in a startup, business, whatever, I think that there's kind of two different types of GPT wrappers. I think there's a GPT wrapper where the main function of the tool is built around chatting with something, that AI output. And then I think that there's another subset of tools where they provide one main value, and then they have, in addition, to use AI as like it's not the flagship feature, or it's not the reason why someone goes to a website, but it can dramatically elevate that user experience. I think I wouldn't call Get You to Major like one of the direct GPT wrappers. I think it's first off, it's a place to see like these rubrics, but I think implementing AI into it really adds a lot of value, and it
It took it to the next level.
yeah, yeah, thank you. And like it takes like it's so just being able to read the rubric and synthesize that is one thing, but having it literally give you feedback on your essay based on the rubric gave like it solves that direct problem. And as far as these other kinds of GPT wrappers, I think it is easy to say some of the negative things about them, and I think with a lot of GPT wrappers, there's a good chance it probably won't make for like a $1 billion company. Like you probably won't build the next OpenAI using an OpenAI API, in my opinion. But I do think that there's an extremely valid use case of like indie hacking a project together, building a lifestyle business that is fully a GPT wrapper. And I think one of the examples we were talking about in class is this website called PDF.ai. And if you think about it, like it has all like so many of the features you can do in ChatGPT now. You can upload a PDF, you can chat with it. That's basically the main use case. But even as ChatGPT has added the same features that PDF.ai offers, you still see the founder tweet about actually his product only growing more. And I think that ChatGPT is so good, but it's like to the user who is not like a power user of it, it's like there's so many ways to use ChatGPT that like there's a lot of people who don't directly think about using it to chat with a PDF. And having a tool that's one sole purpose is chatting with a PDF, I think it gives a lot of value. It let them build like some super niche features within it and really perfect that one part of the user experience. But they also built a spot in people's heads of like, when I have this when I have this problem, here is this one solution that does this one thing that can solve it. And it does it really, really well. While I think with GPTs and the GPT App Store and all of that. Like, it does so many things, but it kind of does them in an extremely mediocre way. I think in conclusion, having like a tool that like, can serve that one purpose can make a bunch of differences.
Uh, the like the one thing I wanted to add, this kind of like I wanted to explain to everyone the kind of like shift that Jake gave me when we talked about this. The aspect of like visualization is different compared to like OpenAI. Like when you're chatting to a just like a bot, it doesn't feel like you don't feel like it doesn't feel like a great experience. Like I think the aspect of like wrapping it through and visualizing it different and giving because like PDF AI, the difference between the chat GPTs, you're getting just a bunch of text, while PDF AI is giving you all sorts of visualizations that allow you to digest information a lot better. And that's I was like, oh, now I see where these rappers come into play. And I really feel like you were talking about, you may not come out with like the next $1 billion idea, but I do think it allows you to ship something super quick and helps you find an issue and start exploring product market fit. Now you find like, okay, what are the issues people having around this segment? And I'm right now using, like this GPT API calls to like really help out, but I can now find what the true problem is without taking all this time creating an LLM or just large language model, the brain of for people that don't know this, the brain of the GPT or like chat GPT. And it allows you to really kind of understand the problem at a much quicker pace. I don't know, like, do you feel the same way? I don't know. That's just kind of like how you shifted my mind after you were talking to me about it, and I went and just started just doing some reflection about
Yeah, I'm really glad to hear that you've come to the other side. But
it.
I think that you're so spot on of how ChatGPT, the API is just so easy, and it's like so easy to build something that can provide some value to people. And I think there's good reason why every single hackathon project these days uses the OpenAI API. And it's literally like it's crazy to think what time was like before we had it. That's how big of an impact I think it's made. Like, what did people even make before that?
Took a hella long time. Took a hella long time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like, I don't know. I just feel like AI in general, like the co-pilots, all that, has just like made shipping a product so much less scary. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's like democratized building in my opinion, in the sense that like a random kid that has no idea and just watching YouTube videos and stuff like that can just learn like along the way and just build something, and they don't have to have, what I'm saying, they can just build whatever and really get like a deep, like they can get deep value out of it, and give deep value to people by just wrapping it in a GPT. And now it's like a different generation of thinking. They're speeding up the whole startup journey process, in my opinion. I think it's just like honestly like great for the community and all, and especially for people that come from communities where this isn't really talked about or startups aren't really talked about. It kind of just allows like a level playing field. Um, but there's one aspect that I'm always been curious about with you, um, and the fact that like how creative you are, and the sense that you bring creativity to kind of the startup world. And I was talking to you about this, and I was like, man, I like really believe that imagination and creativity are key aspects of the startup world, but like we rarely talk about it. I know that you do like photography, tech, DJing, like practically like Virgil Abloh of the tech community. That's how I would describe you. But how does your eye behind these creative mediums fuel your fire in the tech space? And how does the creative process of building, like, what does your creative process look like of building a like engaging product?
Yeah. Yeah. I think zooming out a bit, I realized maybe a year ago or something like that that my passion, when someone would ask me that, it's it would be kind of hard to change because I thought it was always changing. Like for a long time, I was fixated on photography. I still love it. Don't do it as much now, but I had a videography phase. I want to do filmmaking, graphic design. Like there are a lot of side quests that I've gone down on the last few years, and I think last year I finally realized like in some ways it's not really these individual things that like gives me so much obsession and like motivation to work on it, but it's like generally it's just that feeling of creating. Like in every definition of it, just like I had an idea for something, like I had a vision for what I wanted in my head, and I figured out how to use some of these tools that would let me make it a reality. And that applies so much for like startups as I think it does for like taking a good photograph. And like that feeling to me is just so euphoric. And my favorite part of the build process is when the strings are just like you kind of work on everything, like you build out the checkout, you build out the landing page and the accounts, and then like when you're just doing the last final weaving and bringing it all together, that is like, oh my god, the most insane feeling.
No, bro. I feel you so much, bro. Like literally you put me on in the sense of like I lost my touch with building. And then once like you put me on like Framer Motion, which is like a animation, like helps with animations and stuff like that. I started falling back in love with the like I felt creative again. You know what I'm saying? I think software engineering and the think of like doing leak code and all that killed that. But then as soon as I like found my love for building again and like um it was different. The euphoric feeling of weaving a product together and seeing how like people, you just imagine like all your interactions, all those like brain waves firing everywhere has now
Yeah.
come in front of you and you're like other people cannot see my vision.
Hmm. it's it's really insane. And like, oh my gosh, don't even get me started on like sharing what you made with other people, because that's like that's a whole journey in itself that is also such an amazing feeling. um but yeah, with the creative process, I think like I have, I don't know, I think in high school and I had a lot of trouble just like hunkering down, and like I did what I had to do to finish the essay and turn it in on time, but it was always something that I couldn't focus. Like I knew if I was gonna write an essay, I would have to dedicate the whole time to it, take like a bunch of breaks. I think it was all just because like I couldn't get excited about writing a story about Shakespeare and like reading a book about the stuff that I just don't really care about. And when it came to learning how to code and all of the other processes that come to building a product, like I was able to stay focused and committed to it because like there's something that I really wanted at the end of the tunnel. Like I really want to make this idea a reality, or like this vision I have. And like not having the tools to do that is just like not being able to speak your own language, I guess. And that was really, really helpful for like figuring it all out. And honestly, every time coding has been taught in a class, I think like I learn a little bit of the fundamentals, but my best learning is just like when I have that project idea and I just need to put the puzzle pieces together. And it's like, speaking of ChatGPT, I don't know how I did it without it looking back, but it was a fuck ton of Googling and like a fuck ton of Stack Overflowing. Shout out the Discord communities and the people who are always there to help you when you're stuck. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
those people are the backbone of society, bro.
Hey, no, I'm not. I'm saying Jake was like that for me. I'd be hitting up Jake all the time, just ask like, dude, I had like a bug on something. It was like I had like just hella lines just randomly generated. I, I take a picture of it. I'm like, yo, Jake, you get this before? And this guy always be dropping knowledge for how to fix something or what to go about. So hey, you the backbone. You the backbone. And so I wanted to ask one last question before because I know we told you, a certain time won't be respectful of your time. But looking ahead, what's on the horizon for Jake Harper? Any big dreams, any projects you're cooking up that you want to share? And kind of just like walk us through, what you're doing.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So after launching Get UW Major in September, that was like a crazy high. Honestly, like the first time I built something that really took off in a lot of ways. And like I felt for the first time what it feels like to make an impact and hopefully like make a difference for some people in whatever process. I made a little bit of money from it too, but not too much. And I definitely was like chilling on that for a while. And it got to a point where I was just like, that gave me so much hunger to keep on building. And I built out a few more ideas, did some hackathons, but then like there was a solid month of just like, I still really want to build, but right now the idea, it's not coming to me. And that was like weird admitting to myself that I was in a rut and like I knew that it's just a matter of time until I come up with the next thing, but not having that and like sitting down and trying to come up with an idea never really works for me. So I just gotta like be patient and let it come. I think all of that though made me realize that for whatever I did build next, I needed that balance of I need to make an impact and I also want to make money. And I think both of those things will like are what will lead to like that just continuous drive. The unfortunate thing about building for college students is there's like a high willingness to try but a super low willingness to pay. And I've been really experiencing that recently with like even people who did pay for Get You to Major. I've a lot of them have been like charging back or filing card disputes just to like get the money back that they originally paid.
That's
And
crazy.
yeah, so I think that makes me like less motivated to continue building like to think that I can hit my vision of having impact and profit. So for what I'm building next, I'm trying to shift gears a bit and enter like the B2B space and give that a try. And after helping out a buddy open up a cafe over the summer, one of these biggest problems I realized is even for a restaurant owner who's like technologically has a great understanding of that field, there's still so many areas where like for a restaurant owner, it's just so hard to grow out and like have like a better technology base for your business. And what I mean by that is we're specifically diving into catering at small businesses. And in a lot of ways, it's a novel thing. It's a problem that a whole lot of other people have tried to solve. But the more that I go and see how other restaurants are currently doing it, the more I realize like that this problem is still not solved. And I think the best way to verbalize this is, and this difference is if you say, take a look at Chipotle. I don't know if you guys have ever ordered a catering from them before, but they have a great online interface and they make it so easy to set a pickup time, set the delivery, build out your order, build out the buffet, pay for it. And it's super intuitive, anyone can figure out. And then if we go back to say like a local spot around here, maybe even if it has 4 or 5 locations, so many of them are just it's a PDF of their catering menu. It doesn't even always have the prices and a phone number to call them and make an order. And our best competitors, from what I gather, it's just like a embedded form where somebody can say what they want and it like adds it as a ticket and there's still a human who's required to call them back and fulfill their order. And what we're trying to build is bringing this Chipotle experience to the small business. So have that fully catered catering experience where someone can buy out the buffet, buy the boxes, set the pickup time, pay for it, maybe even have it delivered with the DoorDash driver and like do that without taking too much of the margin from the business and having us also walk away with some revenue as well. So that's been what I'm building and I think it can make a cool impact with allowing the small business owners to spend more time on their business. And right now we are trying to just hustle a bit, get our first customer. We spent the last month building out our MVP and it's in a good spot. So just like now is the hard part, honestly. Like I gotta leave my room. I gotta start talking to other business owners. Arguably, we should have done more of this, like getting more feedback while we were building it. And I think from here, you just need to like get a lot of feedback and find someone who's willing to invest their time into us, as the product still isn't fully like production ready, and we'll see how it goes. I'm
Nah,
excited
man.
though.
I think you're gonna be fine, bro. Like, listen, you got a lot of I don't know, you got a lot of experience in the sense of being able to visualize something that people want to use. I remember when you first showed me a product, I was like, holy crap, this like onboarding experience is like was crazy when you first showed me one of your projects. And the fact that that never saw like, you never put that out there or like shared that like full on experience goes to show, bro, like how good you are. You know what I'm saying? Like if your level of like, I know you of perfection. And I think you're gonna be fine, bro. And if anybody
Thank you.
listening, like a business owner, a young business owner, hit up Jake.
Please.
We'll drop your socials. You wanna shout out any of your socials like Twitter or anything out there right
Oh,
now?
hell yeah. Yeah, you guys please follow me, or follow me if you want on Twitter, at NOTLILJ, if you just want like a daily brain dump on whatever I'm thinking about, an occasional startup idea.
And y'all are gonna learn a lot by just peeping in on his tweets, and brain dumps, and just kind of like the knowledge that he drops on how to build, just on building products and stuff like that, and his journey building the startup that he's at right now. Uh, I mean, bro, Jake, you've dropped some serious knowledge bombs on us today, so thanks for keeping it 100 with us.
Of
You're not
course.
just talking the talk, you're walking it.
Thank
And
you.
that's what All Claps is all about.
Yeah. Thanks for being on here, Jake. And to our listeners, keep dreaming, keep grinding, and stay tuned for more stories like Jake's right here. But Jake's, you the man. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Yeah.
Anytime, bro, anytime.